As I mentioned in the previous video, we have an opening HTML tag, and then here's the closing HTML tag associated with that. You'll also notice that there is something extra inside this opening HTML tag. We have language equals, and then inside double quotes is the value of en. This is an example of an attribute. An attribute is something that provides more information about an element. What we're saying then in this HTML tag, this HTML element, we are saying that we are using the language of English. Okay, moving down the line of the minimum code for each web page, we have the head section. Now, this head section is not visible when you open a web page. This head section is just for background information along with the title tag. This title tag is what shows up in the tab portion of a web browser. For example, here I am using Google Chrome, and what you see in the tab would be what's in the title. As an example, let's look at UCM's website, ucmo.edu. You will find that in the tab, it has University of Central Missouri right there. If we go to View, Developer, and then View Source to look at the code behind this, you will find that in the title portion of the code, it says University of Central Missouri. And that's exactly what we see here. This is an important component of every web page because when you do a Google search, the title is what you see in the search page results. To illustrate, let's do a search for University of Central Missouri. And what you find here in blue, that would be the title of the page. Okay, so for your web page, let's go ahead and put your last name on there. I'm just putting in last name, but you should put your last name. Then first web page. Next, after the head section, we have the body. Here's the opening body tag, and then the closing body tag. And actually, before I get to that, let me go ahead and go back to this title tag right here, because this is a good illustration of an element. Okay, an element consists of an opening tag. That would be this title right here, opening title tag. The content, that would be this text right here, and then a closing tag. Now, I've mentioned closing tags a couple of times already in these first two videos, but I haven't really stopped to talk about what that is. If you look at an opening tag, it just has that, and then the closing tag, the only difference between the two is that it has a / right before the name of that particular tag. So in this case, we have an opening title tag and a closing title tag with the / right there. These are important because it marks up your text, and as I mentioned in the previous video, it gives your web browser information so that it knows how to display every element on the page. If you forget to close a tag, then your web browser is not going to know where, in this case, where the title tag ends. Let's go back to the body now. The body would be the visible portion of a website, a web page. In this example, I don't have anything in there except this line right here. This is an example of an HTML comment. Now, looking at this one, it looks like it did some auto-correcting on there, but let me go ahead and address that. It should be a less than sign, exclamation point, and then 2 dashes. So that shouldn't be just one M dash right there. It should be 2 dashes. And then to close it off, you have 2 dashes and a greater than sign. Just like HTML tags, like title, we have an opening delimiter in this case, a series of characters, and then a closing delimiter. Now, everything in between the opening and closing delimiters would be what you call a comment. This is an example of a comment. Now, I just mentioned that everything inside the body tag is visible. However, if you put an HTML comment on there, it's not going to be visible. And there are many uses for HTML comments. One of the most common one would be to serve as notes for people. In a production environment, the person that creates a web page is not necessarily going to be the person who will always have to work on the same page. If you put a piece of code on there that's a little complicated, or maybe you need to explain a little bit, this can serve as notes for the next person working on that page. Even if you're the same person working on that page, it might be that you haven't worked on it so long that you forgot things about that, so it would be a good reminder in this case. Let's look at UCM's website to see if they have comments in there. So this is the code behind that, and yes, it does have several comments on there. So for example, line 65, where it's just saying to anybody who wants to look at the code that it says Facebook pixel code. There's the Facebook code right there. Going down the line, 95, there's a comment that says logo, and sure enough, it looks like this is indeed the logo, the Mule's logo. But when you actually look at how it looks in a web browser, we don't see any of that. Like here's the logo right here. I don't see that, these characters right here. So that's what comments are. They are invisible when it comes to looking at a web page. The only way for you to see it is if you actually look at the source code behind that. Okay, so now that we have the minimum code on there, which technically this is not part of that. You don't need to have a comment, but I just wanted to use that as an example. But most of this is the minimum code for a web page. So now we're ready to actually get to our simple sample web page. Phew. All right, so starting off, we have this right here, which would be the main heading. This is the main idea for this particular page.